So, well, that's perfect timing, perfect segue. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Mark Becker from Cathexis Partners. He founded them in 2008 to help nonprofits get the most from their existing technology tools. So, Mark, it is all yours.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. And Kim, if you can go ahead and put the slideshow in presentation mode.
Okay. Are you seeing that okay now, Mark?
Nope. Still seeing the PowerPoint itself. Maybe it's a different screen you have.
Yeah, thank you. Technical difficulties. Mine.
No worries. All good. And yeah, thanks again, everybody, for joining. As Kim said, during these things. Oh, now it's just me. Oh, okay, that was scary. Oh, there you go. You're good now. During these things, it can be kind of a bit of talking into the void, but know that I know you're there, we know you're there, and we want to hear from you. So please ask your questions as you think of them, and we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer those. There's going to be a fair number of folks on the call today, and like to hear from you and any kind of questions you might have or feedback. Or your own experiences. So, yep, again, I'm the founding partner of Cathexis Partners, and look forward to going through this presentation with you. Let's dive right in. All right, so let's talk about just kind of overview first, right? When you're thinking about starting a peer-to-peer campaign, and specifically for the topic of today is a non-event focused kind of virtual campaign. Like anything else, it starts with the planning, right? You're going to need to work with your staff, your board, and other stakeholders to the campaign to make sure everybody's on board. First of all, one of the first things you want to make sure you look into is you might have some hurdles and some challenges internally from your development officers or other members of your team that have concerns that existing programs might feel intimidated or lose fundraising to attention to this new campaign, that sense of cannibalism, if you will, for other campaigns taking away your fundraisers. But normally what we see is because peer-to-peer fundraising is all about you reaching out to your constituents and then they're reaching out to their friends and family. These are people, there is obviously some overlap in a Venn diagram of people they know and you know directly as the organization, but there's a whole lot of new contacts there and new fundraising focus. And even for existing donors and supporters, they will raise additional funds because of this new virtual campaign you have, especially if it's compelling and has a great message to share and is very clear what you're raising the funds for. So, in that planning phase, it's all about making sure everybody's on board and getting everybody on board if they're not, finding the right platform, doing the configuration, the setup. QGive has a great peer-to-peer platform. If you're not using it, check it out. It's very easy to use, very user-friendly, both on the admin side and on the participant side. And once you get that all set up, it's all about the next step, which is launching your campaign. So, spreading the word, right? Hopefully you can precede it a bit with a few of your stakeholders, again, your staff, your board, other big fundraisers, other people involved with the campaign outside your organization, get them to register and start fundraising. So when people start going in a real hard launch, the big launch, they see that there's already people registered and fundraising, and they see activity and are further interested to get involved. So get the word out there. I'll talk more about communications down the road, but it all starts with promoting, which is the next step. Once you launch it, you got to promote it, get the word out, get people to to really keep the momentum going post-launch, and leads right into the next item, which is all about join us, getting recruitment going. When you set out your communications, when you're introducing this in social media, email marketing, maybe even direct mail, maybe other forms of communication, have a primary form of a call to action initially, right? Just one call to action, and that initially should be register, come join us, and then that message should change over time, and I'll cover that more in a few slides. But then we should be moving into the next step, which is once someone goes ahead and joins the campaign, it's all about coaching them through the fundraising process, right? It can be really intimidating. Some people are great at it. They're just natural fundraisers, really social butterflies, and very interested in having their mission, their focus, their mission of choice be the focus of other people, and have help them raise funds for it. So they're great at it, but not everybody is. They want to do it, but it's not natural to them. So give them a fundraising toolkit to make them be able to be successful. Give them some suggested messages, suggested social media text. Share your logo. Don't hold on to it. And a lot of times organizations still to this day quite often will come across organizations that are concerned about, controlling their message, and you just can't do that this day and age. There's going to be people that are going to be kind of representing on your behalf, your constituents, and for the most part their hearts are all in the right place, and they're going to do great things for you, so you should let them. Give them banners, give them posters, give them access to appropriate logos with hashtags so that they can share that, and make it easy for them to help you fundraise for the campaign. All right, so you're going through all these steps, and finally you get to the wrap up, where you say thank you to everybody. You ask for their feedback. How did it go? You tell them, share with them how it went. From did we reach our goals? Did we hear some examples of some great fundraisers? And then share the overall results. And then also look back at your analytics and see how you did compared to your goals. So that's kind of a very high level overview of everything, right? Now let's kind of dig into some different types of campaigns. And as mentioned, we're going to be sharing these slides with you after the fact, and these are all linked examples. They all you can click through to the actual sites. So you can see the live sites. Some of them might not be active right now because they're seasonal or whatever, but you get an idea. So hopefully you'll be able to see this, click through it when you receive the deck, and definitely feel free to share any questions you have along the way. But let's a great example of a virtual campaign is a virtual food drive, right? It's great on a lot of reasons, and this is why I start off with this, is because it makes sense, and with everything going on with the pandemic right now, food drives are doing very well for the most part, and part of their success is because you can really easily show the mission and convert the mission and how the fundraising it directly affects the mission. For example, in the one example, you have buy in bulk and full cart of groceries, helping a family of 4 for 1 week is $250. Yeah, $250. Full cart of groceries helping a family for two for 1 week is $100. So it's a great way to visualize that. On the other side here, North Texas Food Bank takes it down even smaller, so you can have a shopping cart and put individual items in there, like a canned vegetables, 15 cans for $10. Rice, 10 bags for $20. Obviously, this shows a couple things, right? This isn't what we can go to the grocery store and buy rice or vegetables for. It shows their buying power and how much power that they have in their network to get great deals to help raise money and get food into the hands of the people that need it. So it shows that part of it, but it also shows an individual. So if I give $25, it's basically the equivalent of 28 cans of meat. That's a horrible example. Canned meat. That sounds awful. But you get the idea. And you can put these individual items in the shopping cart, and they'll add up over on the right-hand corner there, and then you check out, and that's your overall donation. And you can also then convert these to monthly gifts. So I think a virtual food drive just covers a lot, ticks a lot of boxes when it talks about a virtual campaign, from both visualizing where the money is going and the efficiency that the food drives work in. So that's the first example I wanted to show you. Moving on. General DIY fundraisers, right? A lot of organizations are doing this, and I highly suggest it. These are outside, if maybe you're doing 5Ks or walks, or obviously annual appeals as well, but this allows people to fundraise, again, on your behalf, for maybe it's a special occasion, maybe they're doing a 5K of their own, just in general, maybe they're doing a triathlon, maybe they're about ready to have their first child, whatever it might be. People can set up their pages and fundraise on your behalf. So that's terrific. Quite often in these, you'll also see like memorial or in honor of as being one of the options. So if you don't, think you'll have enough interest, or if your mission's not directly connected to a health-related kind of cause, you might want to just kind of put that as an option, a memorial, along with these other choices. But moving on to the next example, we show you that there are also great ways to share examples of just memorials and tributes. There we go. Yeah, tributes and memorials. This is St. Jude's Children's Research, I think, does a great job allowing folks to set up, create a fund in honor of someone. And that way, in this case, obviously because of their mission, it makes more sense for them to have kind of a truly branded campaign that focuses just on tributes and memorials, because the tone is different than maybe someone doing a 5K, obviously, right? So the messaging that you send out automatically should be more in line with that tone. So that makes sense in this case, and it's a great site to check out. All right, moving on to the next one. Everybody's talking these days, at least I'm hearing a lot about live stream fundraising. That can mean a lot of different things. It all started with gamers, right? Online gamers that can stream as they're playing a game, and taking it to the next level. And this is quite often done on a platform called Twitch. Taking that to the next level, then really well-known gamers can then share their screens and show off their tips and tricks and just show off how good they are, and people love watching this. I don't quite get it myself, but that's okay. But if you're into that, and it's a great way to allow people to stream and watch these gamers as they're playing their favorite games, and also fundraise during them. And a lot of the platforms these days have live stream fundraising built right in. But if not, on the next slide, there is a developer toolkit to that Twitch has that does allow for folks to embed live stream fundraising on Twitch right into your website. And I talked a lot about gaming, but it could be a cook-off. It could be anything. It could be an artist playing piano, whatever it might be. Gamers is what you kind of naturally think of normally when you think of live stream fundraising, but it could be cooking. It could be a variety of different things. So, and it doesn't have to, if it's not built into the platform, that's okay. There's ways to bring live stream right into your website, and there's developers links that we put in the deck here to show you kind of where to do that. And if that gets kind of above your area of expertise, or outside of it, I should say, definitely never hesitate to reach out. We can help you with these kind of things, because it can be kind of a bit technical, but once it's set up, runs nicely. All right, moving along. So let's talk about user-generated content inside of virtual campaigns. The key is to try to bring that sense of community online, right? And the best way to do that is not just talk at people and share stuff with them of your own making as an organization, but allow the participants to share their content. And this is a great example, this biking event where obviously because of the pandemic, either bike or walk or whatever you're going to do, you can do it virtually, and then you can send. They invited people to share their videos and submit them, and then they shared a lot of them on their main website, on the event campaign website. After the fact and along the way. And that's a great way to allow people to, feel heard and get that sense of community and not feel like they're just like me, a talking head in the void of Zoom while you're all listening. I know you're there. I can see your attendees numbers, and that's great. But it's great to have those conversations. So again, be sure to ask your questions. But user-generated content, videos is one great way to do that. And there's a couple of great different options. There's obviously other ones out there, but the main one I recommend if you're looking into getting into having your constituents share videos, I would highly recommend checking out Gather Voices. Michael Hoffman, who used to be with C3 Communications, started up this company a few years back, and it's just really great way that nonprofits can have their constituents provide content in video format. Basically, you come up with the storyboard, right? What kind of shots do you want? For example, in a virtual campaign, say it's, you're doing a virtual a physical campaign where people are supposed to, you challenge them to walk 5K, 5K or whatever it might be. You can have them send in their videos, or you can ask for specific types of shots, like we want, outside shots of a group safely distancing, obviously, in these times, or an inside shot of people exercising on their stationary bikes, pelotons or treadmills or whatever, and then they get submitted, and it's really easy. Obviously, we're all carrying around these really powerful cameras these days in the way of our phones, so tools like Gathering Voices or Seen It allow for folks to become kind of amateur producers, film producers, without having to worry about all the technical chops. Just makes it really easy to aggregate all this content. Speaking of content aggregation, social media, right? You got your Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever else might be going on, and you want to bring that into your campaigns, your virtual campaigns homepage or event site. So you can use tools like Juicer or TintUp, or of course social media platforms like Twitter or Instagram also have these embed features. If you have a hashtag, you can have it pull into the site. Obviously, you should have a hashtag along with your campaign so that you can sort by it, filter it, and display information based on that. Where something like Juicer or TintUp kind of takes it to the next level is it allows the organization, depending on how you want to set it up, to basically grab all that information, but then pre-approve it before it gets displayed out on the site in case you're concerned about anything inappropriate getting up there, or have the ability, if it's all pre-approved by default, to be able to take down inappropriate content. So low cost, good ways to again make that sense of community stronger with folks. All right, so let's talk about challenges a bit. Obviously the Ice Bucket Challenge comes to mind, but other types of challenges as well, like distance. I'm committing to do a half marathon or a marathon, or I'm gonna bike 100K. Those types of challenges, and then having people pledge to support you X number of dollars per mile or kilometer or what have you, are very popular and a great, again, kind of virtual campaign. Again, still focused on kind of the physical, but Everybody can do it in their own time, and you're not limited to what specific deadline for this thing. You can kind of have it set up as either a seasonal thing or an evergreen campaign that goes on. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Another example from disabled American veterans. Another great challenge where they actually are able to track their number of miles towards their goal and update that as they go. And there's a variety of ways to do that. Moving on to the next slide, there's fitness trackers, Strava, Fitbit, and MapMyFitness. Those are kind of the big ones that I'm aware of, at least. And they all have, and these links have different articles on how you can embed their information into your blog or your site, if you will. Quite often they'll say your blog because they assume that an individual is doing this. But going on to the next slide, specifically Strava, for example, has a really, if you just want to do it kind of baseline simple in Strava, if you haven't ever been to Strava, go check out Strava, and you can create a club. And once people join that club, you can have the club show up, for example, in a widget, and it'll provide you the code here, as you see in the screenshot, where you can copy and paste that right into your site, so that all the latest activity for that club will be shown there. So it's a great way to, again, create a club that goes along with your campaign or your organization, depending on how far you want to stretch it out, or a specific event location or city or season, whatever it might be. Create a club, and then you can invite people to join that and embed their activity right onto the site. There's more advanced integrations with some of the platforms where it'll actually have somebody, when they register or after they register, integrate or do a single sign-on with something like Strava, and automatically pull in their fitness tracking. But there's definitely different levels of this that you can do, regardless of your budget or size or complexity. So it doesn't have to be that complex. All right, going with the sports theme, since we're on this, I want to talk about marketing, right? So whenever you're everybody's heard the saying, right? If you build it, they will come, from the Field of Dreams, the movie. That is definitely not true when it comes to these virtual campaigns. If you build it, does not mean they will come. They being your constituents and fundraisers, might come, but more than likely, if you go on to the next slide, if you don't market this, you'll just be like Kevin Costner, all alone in a field, holding onto a shovel all by yourself, because no one knows about it, and everything else going on in people's lives, and everything else that you're doing as an organization is getting noticed, hopefully, right? So you do have to market it. So let's kind of get into the marketing, which I think a lot of the meat of all of this is. Again, as kind of part of the launch and promote kind of phase of all this, it's all about recruitment, right? Start with your board members, your staff, and your sponsors too, right? Don't forget about your sponsors. Your sponsors, hopefully you have sponsors for the campaign, corporate sponsors, and you have sponsorship levels, and potentially, they are also hopefully inviting their staff to join the campaign, right? Maybe they're, as part of their sponsorship package, they get a certain number of registrations for free if there's a charge normally, or even if it's a free registration, they're promoting it as a big means of kind of support of the community, and really highly suggesting that their team members join. So don't forget about your sponsors, your volunteers. Again, maybe it's your overall organizational volunteers. Maybe it's this is a legacy campaign. Year over year, people volunteer to help out. Always, those are going to be your most active folks. So definitely invite them early to get involved with this. Existing donors, same thing. Past participants. And that's kind of all your known entity, right? Then you get into the community members at large, right? If it's a virtual campaign, but it's health related, go out to your Ys, your physical, your health clubs, your running clubs in the larger cities, and get them involved. Share this with them. Go out and talk with them. Get to know those community members out there that can help really cheerlead and spread the word. And then just in general, the general public, right? So think about all these audiences when you're in the recruiting phase, and really focus your messaging on that. And then you move into the next phase, which is once people are registered. And as you're recruiting, think about sending 3 to 4 messages to invite people to register. As they register, hopefully you can filter out the people that have registered and send a new message, slightly revised, maybe a mission story to go along with it, the initial email announcement with the big announcement, and then a success story and more about where the money's going, et cetera. And on that third message, maybe it's about time to change that, because if they haven't registered by then, it's time to say, well, register. Or, I know I said earlier, just have one call to action, but this is the exception. After about the third or fourth time of them not clicking to register, maybe it's time to invite them just to support it and fundraise. So, but for all the people that have registered, let's talk about coaching them, right? Getting them to, now that they've registered, fundraise for you. And you start out with your entire audience, and you should send out communications to them on a regular basis. But then think about your team captains if you're allowing team registration. And whenever it's appropriate, I highly recommend it, because there's all kinds of benchmark reporting done on people that are on teams, raise more than individual participants, sense of camaraderie and competition, all of that gets people to raise more funds. So if you have team captains, email them, specifically, give them some tips, and maybe send a very similar message to team captains, and then and then 3 days later to everybody. And then also, make sure you focus on and this is one that's often forgotten, focus on your $0 fundraisers. Never forget to run reports and see how many people have just registered but not done anything, not raised any funds. Maybe they've updated their personal page, maybe they've sent out some emails, maybe they haven't, but definitely message to your $0 fundraisers differently than the next group, which is your large top fundraisers. And what defines that, right? That depends on your campaign, your organization, and your participants' involvement. But definitely, don't send the same email to $0 fundraisers and top fundraisers and expect someone in the top dollar fundraising to be happy about getting a message that says, hey, you should really think about fundraising, and here's some tips. They should be given a shout out for and having personalized emails or conditionalized emails that focus on a message to those top fundraisers that says some version of, you're doing a great job, thank you for all you're doing, keep up the great work, share with us your experience and what made you successful in being able to fundraise so much, so that you can then use that as content for future emails to help those $0 fundraisers and all fundraisers to raise more funds moving forward. So make sure you have really personalized messaging as much as you're able to. It'll really make a difference. Again, it's all about acknowledging people and making them feel appreciated and seen. All right, so let's talk about communication channels. Obviously, it's the website itself, but we're going to kind of click through all these different options here. There's the website itself, email, very popular. You may or may not do direct mail, right? If you have the budget for it, a postcard might be something that's very helpful. Maybe with a QR code on it, people can scan, goes right to the registration page. Social media, hugely important. Make sure you're out there, and if you have a following at all, you're chatting with folks individually, sending out broadcast announcements, but also interacting with people as they respond. They like or heart or whatever your different messaging that you're acknowledging them and interacting with them. And then there's your phone, right? Maybe that represents maybe an SMS, text messaging, or maybe perhaps an app. If you're working with an app, and I'll show off a few of those here in a moment. Don't forget old school phone, right? Nothing wrong with picking up the phone and talking to your top fundraisers, some of your team captains, individual top, whoever it might be. Never forget to pick up the phone, time permitting. Maybe put some time on your calendar to allow yourself some time to make those calls. Maybe it's posters in the local neighborhood, right? Poster boards up in, again, health clubs. Maybe it's a billboard on a highway. And then we get into general broadcasting, newspaper, radio, television. It, again, may not be doing all of this. Depends on your size and scale. Maybe you're just looking at, 3 or 4 of these, being your website, email, social media. That's fine. Just make sure you have a coordinated plan, and let's talk about that next. So make sure you have a communications calendar. And again, there's a link in here to a sample, a few different sample communication calendars, basic ones. But make sure before you start your season, again, part of that planning phase is writing down all of your communications. When does it go out? What channel you're using? Is it direct mail? Is it an email? Is it social media? Who's the audience? What's the description, of that? What is the call to action? And then start getting into the content, right? So once you kind of lay all that out, for example, you'll have all your emails, and then you'll be able to go into then kind of convert that to social media for the same week. So kind of messaging follows, and it all makes sense. And then once you have that, definitely do that in advance. Schedule it all out, and then plan to adjust the messaging as the season progresses, because things will change, right? You might want to change some messaging based on actual registration compared to projections. Either if it's a legacy campaign, you've done it kind of year over year, or a virtual campaign, and it's that season again, and you're running some reports and seeing that you're behind registration from the previous years. Maybe do an incentive, give some shout outs, whatever it might be, to get more people to register. Maybe do a discount code if there is a registration fee. And then also look at numbers like actual fundraising compared to projections, number of $0 fundraisers. That's something you should definitely, report on and know. How many of your peer-to-peer fundraisers registered and that's all they did? That's fine. Especially if it's like a timed 5K, for example, there's going to be a lot of those. You're going to be up around, 60% plus that just registered, and that's it. And that's not surprising, because they're there to get their PR, their personal record, or entry into something else, or just there to run. They're not there to fundraise. And if you're okay with that, you need to know that going in. But if it's a fun walk, or if it's a virtual campaign, they're probably there more for the mission. So hopefully you have less $0 fundraisers. But know what that number is. And make sure you're communicating with those folks. Maybe your average gift size is different than you expected, and the large number of fundraisers is different than you expected. And then, of course, just logistical updates might happen. Even if it's a virtual campaign, maybe you're going to do something in person or have something. You never know what might happen, like an unexpected pandemic, for example, where everybody, all of us were pivoting and making changes last March of last year, and throughout the year. So set your communications calendar and then adjust it as necessary. But you'll be so much happier that you did that advanced planning and set the foundation, so then you can just tweak the messaging as necessary, and then hold on to that information for the next year and the next campaign. Or maybe, again, if it's an evergreen campaign, there's seasonal things that you should do throughout the year, but every email shouldn't be an ask to donate. You need to go beyond that. There needs to be more of an interactive discussion. All right, then getting into kind of more advanced elements are where you can integrate apps with your peer-to-peer campaigns, and some of them will be primarily just focused on Facebook fundraising integration. Good United, Give Panel, and Charity Dynamics. There are some examples of that being the primary focus, but there's other options like Let's All Do Good and Grassroots Unwired that can focus on a bit more general advocacy and fundraising and overall communications. Some apps can be quite pricey, but there are new apps like Let's All Do Good on the market that do allow for a low-cost way for your organization to have an app and to communicate with folks. There's only going to be so many people. You have to have the right type of constituents, the right interest category to for somebody to take that hurdle of actually downloading the app, right? But once they do, first of all, you better give them a compelling reason to, and then you better deliver on that. But that means those are your diehard, your real cheerleaders, your real invested constituents, right? So that's great. And you'll be able to communicate with them on a regular basis. You can set up push notifications. You can, there's all kinds of things you can do with an app, but of course you have to get past that hurdle of people actually downloading it. First of all, we all talk about just getting people to register for an event. Can you imagine downloading an app? Yes, it's a small percentage, but those are probably there are going to be your top fundraisers, with few exceptions, that are also going to be interested in having that content from you on a regular basis and a new way of communicating. And then once you have them on an app, then they can access all their contacts, all their social media integrated there in their phones, and everything becomes a lot simpler. All right, what's next? So kind of just ending on this note, I think a great example of a virtual campaign that actually happens just is all focus year round is the Alzheimer's Longest Day, alz.org//longest day. It's basically all focused on one day, but they're fundraising throughout the year. And I think they just do a great job for a virtual campaign of making it feel like a community and allowing people to basically, the goal is to do something from sun up to sundown on the longest day, June 20th on the calendar, summer solstice, and getting people to share, their experiences in a variety of ways. So with it coming up a few months away, I would highly recommend everybody kind of check out this site if you're interested in virtual fundraising and take some tips from them. They do it very well. And then on the day, you'll see all the different user-generated content coming in from all these different ways and what people are doing on the longest day of the year. And it's very compelling and a really great sense of community. So definitely say check it out. Again, it's coming up in a few months, and I think there's a lot of different great campaigns out there. I think that's the end of my planned rambling, and would love to hear if there's any questions, and how we doing on time, Kim?
We are doing great, Mark. You're actually 5 minutes early, but
Talk fast. Yeah, sorry about that.
we covered a lot of great information. We do actually have one question here for you, and so I just remind everyone, if you do have a question, go ahead and put it in the question section, and we will jump into that. But if you think of it afterwards, please feel free to contact Mark or QGib, and there'll be some contact information in our slide in our follow-ups. But Mark, your question right now is, what is the average amount of money raised in a peer-to-peer virtual fundraiser?
Ooh, I don't know if there is an average. Food banks right now are doing really well. So I don't know if I can answer that. There's plenty that just raise, if they don't do any kind of proper communications, they raise $10,000 or less, right? If you just put it up there on your site and link to it, you're not going to raise much. But if you put some effort and marketing into it, again, depends on the number of constituents you have, and the passion that they have for your campaign and how well you communicate that, will really, affect results. I know food banks, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars on virtual campaigns currently, as an example. But it really depends. It's a great question. I wish I had an answer. That's a really lame answer, but it definitely varies by mission, by the size of your constituent base that you're communicating to as your core, and a lot of other factors. But if you don't put much work into it, you're not going to see much return. That's a horrible downslide to end on there, but yeah,
Well,
it's the truth of it.
I bet you can find a way to pick up on this one. We have, what about matching gifts? What's the best way to leverage them, and is it worth pursuing?
Yes. In fact, I thought about having a slide in here for that, but I thought I was getting a bit long, so I didn't want to put any more slides in. So two different matching gifts, two different concepts here, right? The first one being your standard corporate matching gifts. Highly suggested. Great question. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes. Use something like HEP data or Double the Donation. Double the Donation has 360 Match Pro, I think is the product. Really versatile, does a great job. And what you do is, once you have a contract with them, they'll give you some code snippet to put onto your donation form that allows people, that donors, as they're filling out the form, to look up and put their company name in that they work for, and do a search and look up and see if they do matching gifts, and then starts the process, makes it easier for you to get those, because the matching gift process is different for each company. So and how much they'll match, and what the rules are, if there's any, if they stay away from faith-based, or if they allow, who they allow to give to. So using those types of tools, definitely highly recommend it. The other type of matching gifts, and really effective, is working with your sponsors or your top donors, your major gifts donors, and having them match for a day, or think about Next Giving Tuesday, for example. If you're using that as a virtual campaign, which it is, you can have a different sponsor for each hour of Giving Tuesday, and have them match a certain amount, and open that up to your corporate sponsors or individuals. So, from noon till 1 p.m., somebody, a local company, will sponsor and will match any donations up to 25,000, and that is you're always going to see great mileage out of something like that, because people feel, I know I look for personally, when giving to organizations that I give to on an annual basis, I always keep an eye out for their matching gifts, when that whatever you're donating to is going to go that much further because someone else is matching it. Great question.
And then jumping back a little bit, can you elaborate more on the Twitch platform and live streaming?
Ooh, that's a broad question, but yeah, I mean, depends on what part you want to elaborate on, but as far as setting the groundwork, again, Twitch is a platform that allows gamers or others, artists or whoever, to live stream something, and you can even use this yourself and just live stream, like Facebook Live. Basically, you can just FaceTime on your phone, right? You can just stream live. And then live stream fundraising makes it so that there's a donation button, hopefully embedded inside of that same screen, so you don't have to leave that environment to make the donation. Sometimes, depending on what the platform is and how you've got it set up, that might take people away from that, and does take away from the experience a bit. But that's the only option, and it's your low cost way of setting it up. That's fine. And then that can be either set up by the participants, or it can be an overall campaign set up by the organization to kind of have a schedule of live stream events. I'm not sure if I answered your specific question, though.
I found it helpful. Kind of keeping on slightly different, going back here, how important are incentives in peer-to-peer campaigns without a dedicated event element?
Incentives can mean a lot of things, right? Maybe you send out, you definitely have milestones. incentives. So hopefully, they can get a fundraising badge or a little shout out on their personal page once they've raised a certain level, as that type of incentive, right? At the least. And I think maybe in a lot of times that's all you need to do is that sets up structure that shows people what is expected of them or what is normal. They might not know what they're expected to fundraising. Same thing when you go to register, having a suggested fundraising goal, that kind of goes along with that. They can always change that, and quite often you'll want them to raise it up or possibly go lower. But you want to have those incentives or bars to reach for. Now, as far as physical incentives like swag, right? Those are great as long as you have a process for fulfillment and you're not making it a lot of trouble for yourself and a lot of expense. Maybe there's no registration fee, but they only get a T-shirt or these days a mask or a T-shirt and a mask until they raise their first $50 or $100. And then you can set up, having that delivered to them or having them stop by and pick it by up at your offices. So, you guys start getting into logistics there when you're talking about virtual campaigns and the actual delivery of that. But definitely, yes, use incentives, but there's a lot of people that will argue. I know Katrina and the folks over at Turnkey, they definitely don't believe in, kind of having people get gifts for fundraising. That's kind of anti. I think it depends. I think it depends on your constituency. And I think it's okay to give away swag, but always have the option, if you're going to do that, to have people opt out. They raise that amount, but they choose not to accept it. And that money then stays with the organization, and that makes them feel better about themselves in that way.
Great answer. Thank you. Our next is, my organization created and launched our own peer-to-peer fundraising feature using Donor Drive, not QGive. We're struggling now with promotion. Can you provide 2 to 3 promotional strategies?
Promotion, so getting people to register. Yeah, again, really focus on your constituents. If there's a registration fee, offer up a discount code. If you're allowing if you're having teams and doing team fundraising, put some incentives out there for team captains to get X number of team members based on the reports you're running and seeing how big the average team is. Incentivize people in other ways. Just have a challenge out there. You don't have to give them again swag or any carrot for this, but just more of attaboys and, hey, we're having a challenge. We're trying to get to X by the end of the week or the end of the month. So here's some messages, here's some suggested messages that you can send to your friends and family to have them join you instead of just donating and supporting you. Have them join you in the campaign, and here's the sample messages to do that.
Great. Do you have any suggestions for silent auction and how to promote it?
So silent auctions, yeah. Kind of the same rules apply as far as the communication of it still apply. The silent auction piece of it, though, adds a nice little added benefit of hopefully you have some great things that are being auctioned off, so you can definitely highlight those, what the coveted items, the top tier items, and don't you want to get this? Don't you want to go on this trip? Don't you want to, receive this? Don't you want to, be the sponsor of this family? Whatever you're auctioning off, really play it off. Watch QVC for a few hours and get some tips from them on how they sell all that garbage that they sell. Sorry for anybody that really likes QVC, but yeah, there's definitely just show them the shiny, and this is how they get it. Start out with that picture of this beautiful thing that they could get by putting in a bid on a silent auction. Hope that helps.
Okay. Here's an integration question for you. Do the apps that you mentioned integrate into QGive, or are they separate?
A lot of them do. It depends on which ones. I don't know, Kimberly, if you have any that you want highlight. I'm trying to remember offhand which matching gifts, for example, you integrate with, or and which I think you don't need to, as far as Facebook fundraising, you don't need a separate app because you guys integrate directly, if I remember correctly, with
That
Facebook
is correct.
fundraising. Look at
Yeah.
me. All right. I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
We do have quite a bit of integration information, and so we can make sure we can get that to you and follow up if there's specific, since there were so many different apps. We'd probably want to dive into that a little more specifically with you.
Yeah.
General question here, though, is how do you write a social media plan, Facebook versus Instagram?
I mean, again, it all starts with that calendar and the timing of it. And then Instagram, it's all obviously very visual, but the same topics still apply, right? Here's your call to action. What are you trying to portray? What are you trying to emote? What is your call to action? What are you trying to say in this tweet, this post, this email, this thing? And then what's the call to action, and what's the content? And so it's just a matter of writing those things down and then getting the right images and other content to fill the blanks. Hope that answers your question.
And I'll jump in there as well. We have a great generational giving resource that kind of breaks down the generations and how, maybe as an example, you target a different message to the Facebook group than the Instagram group because they might actually be in slightly different demographic.
That's a great point. And you guys are doing a session on that with us here next month, I believe. So
yes, so
check that out.
Definitely watch our resource emails and information, and go to the QGive site for resources if you'd like to see that sooner too. Do you have any advice for creating a competitive environment for peer-to-peer fundraisers?
Yeah, teams always help, so that you can have people compete for the largest teams. Try to give out a shout out in email communications when you're sending out your communications. Part of that should be, highlighting top fundraisers of the week, of the month, whatever that time frame is. Largest team or largest percentage of growth of team, because otherwise you're going to have these huge corporate teams and no one ever has a chance of beating their size. But if you have a group of friends that gets together and their team has grown by 300%, that's another way to look at it. So those types of and making sure that's in your communications, being able to run those reports and see, and again sharing those stories, and maybe even hopefully you can figure out some way of giving them some kind of a shout out, maybe sending them a little tchotchke or meeting, if you happen to be able to meet up with them and taking a picture with them and putting it in the newsletter and on the site, really helps kind of get that competition up. And when someone else sees someone else succeed, they want to maybe see themselves in that place, or at least hopefully they'll get some ideas on how they can fundraise as well.
We have time for a couple more. I'll try to get them in here. What is the largest goal you are aware of?
Oof, that's a good one. Hold on, I'm going to pull out a report. If you're not familiar with it, check out Peer-to-Peer Professional Forum. They have an annual conference, and every year they put out the top 30 peer-to-peer fundraising, top 30. I think this year is going to be very interesting. It's going to be, I think, in a couple weeks here. I think the conference is soon, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results because, like for example, I'm looking at 2019 results, and this isn't quite your question, but I think it's related. Relay for Life in 2019, their gross was 161 million. Obviously, that's a relay. That's not a virtual event. But the top virtual campaign, I believe, is Movember was then, and that was 17,850,000 in 1 year. Extra Life, which is the live streaming. I think I had that. Oh, I don't have that example in there. But Extra Life is a gaming marathon. They raised 15 million. So those are pretty big virtual campaigns. Yeah, Movember is a great example of a virtual campaign that happens on a specific month and does really well.
And I think this will be our last, probably our last question. But what types of virtual campaigns are you seeing the most?
Um, a lot of DIY fundraisers where you have fundraise, for whatever you want, and quite often the organization will have like samples like the ones I showed you, where there's physical events, life-changing event like a wedding or birth of a child, in memory of somebody. That type of thing. You set those up because then people can use it however they want to. The main thing is you give them the toolkit to be able to set up their own fundraising page, know that the funds are going directly to your organization, but be able to still put their own message out there to the world. So those are the ones I'm seeing most often.
Well, that was great. Wow, those were some really good questions.
Good questions.
So if we weren't able to get to your question today, or you do have, any additional questions, here's some contact information. Here's Mark's email address, as well as our contact information here at QGIve. So we do want to thank you for joining us, and we will be emailing you a recording of today with links to the presentation and some other great peer-to-peer resources. Don't forget to claim your CFRE credits. You earn 1 credit for joining our webinar today. And please remember to complete your survey. We hope you got some great ideas and are on track for your peer-to-peer fundraising. We'll be in touch. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody, and look forward to hearing from you.
All right, have a great day.
Bye-bye.